All right. We are Greenwood Elementary's fifth grade reading team. I am Elise Gullett. I've been at Greenwood for 6 years. This is my 22nd year teaching.
I am Tanya Sharon. I'm an EC teacher, and I've been teaching 14 years, 2 of them here at Greenwood.
Hi, I'm Jenna Kaywood. I'm a fifth grade teacher, and I've been teaching fifth grade for the past 2 years, but I also taught third here. So 4 years here, but 18 years of experience.
All right, we are doing reading for the McSwain Team Teacher Award. So the first thing we're going to talk about is team teaching. What are some things that helped us have our team work together last year?
Okay, so a lot of things that we did with team teaching is we collaborated on how we could better meet the needs of our students and plan, as well as
So fifth grade did blocking last year. So Jen and I were all of the general education population, and Tanya supported us with EC. And for the general population, we had a document that we did all of our lesson planning on. So that if Jenna had a cool website, I also had a cool website. And if I had a cool PowerPoint, Jenna also had access to the PowerPoint. And we did all of our planning that way so we could keep pace and that way. And then Tanya supported us by pulling in what the lower level kids needed and addressing their specific IEP needs.
Yes.
Sound about right?
Yes.
We did all of that together. Yeah. All right. So as far as best practices, the 2 things that we decided to focus on were vocabulary and writing. So what are some things that you did in fifth grade last year to help with vocabulary?
So with vocabulary, we analyzed the words. We analyzed not only the prefixes, the suffixes, morphology of it, but also defined made word webs on the board that I'm going to include for you to see, so that it was more so that the students could see it and use it throughout the week. So we did that, and we also used this, which is for Greek and Latin roots, and we use this to better define the root of those words as well.
We also used Powerful Vocabulary, which was a weekly vocabulary where they would use the same vocabulary words in context. And we used that both we used the fifth grade version for the kids that were on fifth grade. We used the sixth grade version for our advanced kids, and we used the fourth grade version for our kids that needed intervention in vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And then another piece of our reading as far as vocabulary is insane amounts of reading. Most of our students aimed for 100 points for the year in AR, and this is the kind of reading that's just, you pick a novel, you read a novel, you answer questions about it. It was exposure to content, rich content in context, and as much as we could. We focused on having them read as many books as possible. We set novel goals in AR, and I mean, we had kids that were over 400 points in AR, over 300 points. They really just read a ton because vocabulary exposure in context in something that they want to read and not just in things that we said, here's this book you have to read, which we did do. Mm-hmm. So we did do novel studies.
And we also, we made it competitive. So we also had, I had a poster, I had like a huge poster, a huge Post-it, and I put chapter book champions, and they would record how many times they read novels and with tally marks, and it just became very competitive with them. And so that's really was part of factored in as one of the drives for them to read more. We also did novel studies. We read books like Save Me a Seat. It's great for author's point of view. No Talking, and then Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Lightning Thief. And then this is the president of the whole fifth grade, which also ties in with our social studies for fifth grade, and plenty more.
But it is important to remember too with the lower level students to provide content information for them to read on their level so they can still practice the same skills, but accessing lower level reading material to practice the same things that the rest of the class is working on.
And so with my class, they were in groups and they read together in groups. And then with my kids who needed more assistance and support, I would meet with them and they would read with me. And we would analyze more, probably a little bit more deeper than other groups, but yeah, so they could understand it.
We also let kids use read aloud for their novels, where they could have it read to them. And then the one expectation was that they still had to have their book open and be looking at the page that they were reading on. So they were seeing the words as someone was reading it to it, not just put their book down and go do other things. But that was another accommodation we made for our lower level kids. And we had kids that started off using all read aloud. And by the end of the year, they were reading novels on their own because they built their vocabulary enough that they were like, oh, I know what this word is. I can read these books on my own now. And so that was a really big push for them. And with choosing levels of novels within reason, we really opened it up. No kid ever came to us and said, that's above my level. Can I read that? And we said no. If it was above their level, we were like, sure, go ahead, try it. And then sometimes we'd let them use read aloud if it was way above their level, or read with a partner, and if it was, and there were rules about too low, like if you're in the 5th grade and reading on 5th grade, probably shouldn't be reading like 2nd grade novels. But if they wanted to read a 4th grade book that really struck their interest, we let them read it. You didn't say, no, that's too low, you can't read it, it doesn't fit your AR. If they wanted to read a novel, we encouraged them to read it, no matter what it was. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the other piece that we focused on was writing, because there's a lot of research that shows how much writing plays into understanding what you read. And so we did a lot of writing in class. They did a lot of writing with accommodations in Ms. Sharon's class. And so one of the things we did was my class wrote a novel. They wrote a story, and we wrote it in November, and they edited in January, and we published them in March that they could take home, and they had their stories, and it really helped them understand story structure. And then when they were reading a story and it's asking what's the theme, they're like, oh, I know I had to do this. I had to write a theme, so now I know how to identify the theme in the books that I read. And then we did research papers where they had to research a topic and then write those 5-paragraph papers. And these are, again, for the general ed classrooms. And of course, accommodations were made. We used a lot of talk to text for the kids that, one, couldn't type, and two, their spelling, not so much there. But still that talk to text, and then they'd have to go back and do peer editing for grammar and things. 6 day. So, and that was one of the things that we did for writing.
So I did research. I did, especially with influential people of history, and then they would, they do the research, and then they would have to present it to class. And then we also did book reports, which I am a big fan of, so I want to do more of those next year. But yeah, that really helped them not only read the text, but how it connected with them. How did the text connect with them? How did what they read, how do they understand it? They understand it more, not by just reading it, but by writing about it and by presenting it to others. And then they're learning from each other that way as well. So, yes.
One of the strategies that I've used, I know a lot of people have seen the thinking maps. I have used these numerous times, and I have kids who sit down to write, and I get like 2-3 sentences. And then I go through using some of these thinking maps with them, starting with a circle map where they're just generating ideas, and they didn't even realize how many ideas they had, or that they could think of more than just one thing.
Yes.
And so starting with generating ideas on the circle map, and then moving from there, taking the information and organizing it into a flow map, and realizing that each one you can have multiple sentences per, And by using this strategy, I've had kids go from 2 to 3 sentences to an entire page of writing without even realizing that they could do it. So this is definitely a strategy to help them to get all of that information and to progress with it.
Big fan of graphic organizers across the board. One of the other things we did is we did take advantage of the grammar in Wonders, and we taught
Yes.
grammar. We taught grammar last year. We taught grammar again this year because there is just sometimes a lack of instruction in grammar in elementary school because we're focused on comprehension. But the grammar really also helps them understand what they're reading, because if you understand that that comma means that you changed something or you
Yes.
paused and can change the meaning of a sentence, the grammar is important. So
Especially when they're summarizing the text or writing a report, they need to make sure they understand the rules of writing.
So overall, those are the things that we used last year to help us achieve the scores that we got. And we used them again this year with relatively high success. So we recommend them.